Thanks, Haley. My name is Peter Simpson. I'm the Dean of Graduate Studies, and I'm joining you from the beautiful Okanagan Valley. I'd like to acknowledge that we're here on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Silks Okanagan peoples. Some years ago, 1986, I was in your position. I was applying to graduate school. And I have to say, I did love being an undergraduate. Homework and taking courses and all of that was not for me. But in graduate school, what I found out was that I loved doing research. So for me, applying to grad school was the beginning of a great adventure. And it's an adventure that I'm still enjoying now, all these years later. Today, we've got a great team here to give you information to help you with the process of applying. And I want to remind you that admission's competitive. So this is an opportunity for you to display your initiative and to think of the application process as your first research project. We're delighted post-COVID to be back on campus, and we're hoping to welcome you to our programs and to our community of scholars. I hope you'll find graduate school to be both challenging and rewarding. I enjoyed it so much that I never left. Here I am. So listen and ask questions, and I wish you success. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Peter. And now I'd like to ask Dr. Paul Shipley and Dr. Margaret Reeves to each introduce themselves. They are the other, they make up our Dean team, and I will let them introduce themselves. Maybe we'll start with Paul.
Hello, everybody. Can they see me? Hello, everybody. My name is Paul Shipley. I'm one of the Associate Deans of the College of Graduate Studies. I'm very much looking forward to working with you during your academic journey.
Good morning, Margaret Reeves. I'm Associate Dean as well, and I am also looking forward to working with you and welcoming you to the Okanagan.
All right, thank you both so much. And now I'd like to pass it off to Laura Bissell, my wonderful colleague and our business analyst and training lead. She is the expert of our application system, and she's going to share some of that wisdom with you today. So take it away, Laura.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Hope you can all hear me. Thank you for that great introduction, Haley. So yes, my name is Laura Bissell, and I'm the business analyst and training lead on the admissions and records team at the College of Graduate Studies. Joining us today for this presentation are quite a few of our staff as well as campus partners. First, we have Nathan Sletton, who is our Manager of Awards and Analytics at COGS. Nathan, did you want to say just good morning? Oh, you're muted.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll say good morning and welcome, and I'll be giving a short presentation on graduate awards in about a few minutes here. So I'll see you then.
Great, thanks. We also have Caitlin Voth, who is our Graduate Awards and Projects Officer within the College of Graduate Studies.
Good morning.
And we also have Stephanie Riley, who is our Indigenous Graduate Student Advisor within
Receive an offer of admission.
Indigenous Programs and Services.
So good morning. Let me just check.
Next, we have Nora Lambret, who is an International Student Advisor and Graduate Specialist within the Global Engagement Office.
Welcome, everybody. Looking forward to chatting with you soon.
Thanks. And we also have a few of our admissions and records officers from the College of Graduate Studies. So these are the individuals who will be processing your applications and documents. They will be available at the end for the Q&A portion of our presentation. We have Michelle Colvey, Natalie Kirkwood, and Aparna Sashindran. I think you'll see their faces a little bit later. Okay, so I just want to extend another warm welcome to everyone joining us today for the webinar. We really hope that you find it helpful and informative as you embark on your journey towards applying to grad school at UBC Okanagan. Just a reminder to put any questions that you have throughout the session into the Q&A section on Zoom, and we will answer them at the end of the session. In terms of an agenda today, we'll start with the following sections. We'll provide you with an overview of the application process, things you need to consider before you apply, some of the eligibility requirements required for admission into UBC Okanagan, steps that you can take to prepare your application and consider for funding your studies. We'll also provide a couple of campus resources available and a few tips on what to do after you submit your application. And then, of course, as a reminder at the end, the Q&A will happen once the presentation is done. Okay, so first up, just sort of a little welcome activity. Tell us a little bit about which program and degree you are interested in applying for. This helps us know for future sessions, who attended today, what kind of information people are looking for, and it's just a great idea to just a good knowledge. Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm looking at the responses now. I'm seeing quite a few master's applicants coming through. That's great. See a lot of people from engineering and IGS. That's the interdisciplinary graduate studies program that we have. One thing is that we will keep the poll open throughout the session. So if you don't feel like answering right away, you can, of course, answer it as we move along. But it looks like a good cross section of programs here. Okay, so first up, we'll just give you a brief overview of the application process. So there are three main players involved in the application process at UBC Okanagan. There are applicants, the College of Graduate Studies, and the graduate programs. But some people wonder, what is the role in each process? So first up, we have the role of the applicants. This means the applicants are responsible for reviewing the list of available programs and determining which program they'll apply to. As an applicant, it's your responsibility to also review the admission and application requirements as found on our website, and the link is there. It's also an applicant's responsibility to submit the application and materials via the online system and to meet all deadlines associated with the application. Applicants are expected to use the online application to check the status of their application and submit any documents required as listed in their checklist. If an applicant is admitted, it's also their responsibility to accept or decline the offer via the application system prior to the deadline to accept. And of course, applicants are also expected to submit all their official documents and clear their admission conditions by the deadlines posted in their application, or sorry, excuse me, their offer letters. What is the role of the College of Graduate Studies, otherwise known as COGS? That's what we use as the shorthand. Our office provides services around applications, admissions, scholarships, and awards. We answer general questions around the application process and minimum requirements. So we have two main teams involved in this. The admissions and records team receives submitted applications and verifies receipt of documents, and the awards team answers questions related to merit-based scholarships and awards. Two things that our office does not do is we do not offer academic advising services, and nor do we offer pre-assessments of credentials. Our office is also responsible for receiving all of the applications and processing them via the application system. We verify and validate all documents, including references. We send complete applications for program review and process admission recommendations and send offers and declines. We are also responsible for clearing admission conditions and enabling students to register. The third actor in our application process is, of course, the graduate programs themselves. So our graduate programs responsibilities include answering general prospective inquiries related to the programs. They can also offer academic advising. So if you're unsure as to which program you're interested in applying to, they can provide feedback on that. They also review and evaluate completed applications and submit their admission recommendations to the College of Graduate Studies. Okay, moving on to our next section. Before you apply, one of the most important things to do, of course, is to choose the right program for you. So understand why you're applying to graduate studies. Take inventory of your passions and motivations. Ask yourself, why do you want to pursue a graduate degree? And what do you hope to achieve by going back to school? That answer can help guide you through the process. Do your research and explore your options, and make sure the program that you're applying to matches your goals. Not all graduate degrees are created equal, and even in the same discipline, a program's focus can vary. Does the program you're interested in emphasize theory, original research, or a more practical approach of knowledge? That's something you need to consider. Also, keep your career goals in mind. Do you want a course-based program or a research-based program? This should be top of mind when choosing the degree that suits you. For some careers, an advanced degree gives you an edge. And if a graduate degree is needed for a career, you need to choose the one that adequately prepares you for the job that you want. Generally speaking, students contemplating a PhD or an academic career are best served with a research-based program. Professional course-based master's degrees are more structured and focus on the direct application of knowledge in teaching and educational administration contexts. If you have specific questions about a particular program, we do advise that you reach out to the programs directly. Another thing that you need to consider before you apply is identify a supervisor. This is mostly important in research or thesis-based programs. It's very important that you approach prospective supervisors before you apply. Most thesis-based programs will require you to do this. When you're ready to contact potential supervisors, emailing them is a very good first step. And start early. Don't contact them right before an application deadline and expect an immediate response. Develop a short list. There may be multiple supervisors that you would be interested in studying with. Ensure they're on, and most importantly, ensure they're on the right campus. So we are on the Okanagan campus, so you should be looking at supervisors that are based on our campus. Do your research. Familiarize yourself with your potential supervisor's research interests and ongoing projects. Check their websites, previous publications, and current research projects. Above all else, write concisely and professionally. Professors get dozens of emails for potential students throughout the year. If you want your email to stand out, you must give the professor the information they need quickly and clearly. Use proper titles, for example, Dr. Smith. Use complete sentences, and of course, spell check. Another hot tip is make a connection and provide the reasons that you should be considered for supervision. Connect the work you've done and the research projects the professor is working on. Include any details of scholarships you've won, as well as any research projects or publications you've contributed to. If you already have funding, it's important to state the amount, duration, and source. Finding and securing a supervisor is the responsibility of the applicant, so making a first impression is key. A positive first impression is key. Now, sometimes, of course, some things don't work out the way we expect them to, and what if you don't receive a response? If you're struggling to connect with identifying a supervisor, it's a good idea to reach out to the graduate program coordinator or program assistant responsible for the program and get their input. Remember, professors are very busy people and their schedules will vary depending on the time of year. They may not be able to respond to emails right away. As well, not all professors are able to take on graduate students every year. If you still don't hear from the faculty member after sending a message followed by a polite reminder, it is advised that you start looking for an alternate supervisor to contact. Another thing that you should consider before you apply is talk money. Know how you're going to fund your degree. There are a lot of costs associated with going to graduate school, including tuition, living expenses, rent, fees, etc. And most graduate programs will want to know how you expect to fund your degree within the application itself. So it's best to be prepared ahead of time. Plan ahead and don't rely on the possibility of scholarships and awards. Some funding is secured at the point of admission, but not all. So it's important to know what your plan is. It's also important to be in contact with the program to know if you can work full-time or part-time while you complete your program. Some professional programs expect that you do not work during the program because of the intensity of the program itself. Know the details of your funding resources, your funding sources. So when you're reaching out to prospective supervisors, ask them about potential funding opportunities and any other employment opportunities that may exist within the program itself. We'll talk a little bit more about applying for awards and scholarships a little later in the program, but this is something today, but this is something to keep in mind when you go through the process. We're going to switch gears here now and talk a little bit about the eligibility requirements required for admission to graduate programs at UBC Okanagan. Just as a quick reminder, these are the minimum requirements for admission to the College of Graduate Studies. Individual graduate programs may have additional admission requirements, so it's important that you consult the graduate program listings in the calendar to confirm the admission requirements for any specific degree programs you're interested in applying to. In terms of academic requirements for applicants applying from Canadian or American institutions, in general, applicants to master's programs must hold the equivalent of a 4-year bachelor's degree with a minimum overall average in the B+ range. This would be considered somewhere between 76 and 79% at UBC. And this GPA must be in the B range in courses third year courses and up. Doctoral applicants must hold the academic equivalent of a master's degree with clear evidence of research ability or potential and a minimum overall average in the B+ range in all graduate level courses. One thing to keep in mind is that applicants who don't meet these requirements but do have a significant formal training and relevant professional experience can be granted admission on the recommendation of the appropriate graduate program and approval of the Dean of the College of Graduate Studies. For our international applicants, the credentials required are a little bit more complex. For master's applicants, applicants must hold a credential deemed academically equivalent to a 4-year bachelor's degree from an approved institution and who demonstrates superior academic standing. Similarly, for doctoral applicants, applicants must hold a credential deemed academically equivalent to an approved Canadian 2-year master's degree from an approved institution and who demonstrates superior academic standing. Now, in recognition of the very varied types of credentials available throughout the world, UBC has created a guide that lists comparable credentials and the grade requirements for each different country, and it's available on our website at that link below. One of the other required documents is including proof of English language proficiency. So applicants applying from universities outside of Canada, at which English is not the primary language instruction, must present evidence of competency to pursue studies in the English language. So in the summer of 2022, UBC Okanagan expanded the number of English language tests approved for admission to graduate programs. Originally, there were only 2, the TOEFL and the IELTS, but we've now expanded them to include the 9 here that you see. 2 of these tests are only accepted provisionally through summer 2025, and that's the TOEFL Essentials and the Duolingo English. All tests must be taken within the last 24 months at the time of application submission. And if you're required to submit English language scores and you have not yet taken one of these tests, it is advised that you wait to submit your application until you've taken the test. It's important to read through our website to see the details regarding the minimum scores required for each test. And individual graduate programs may set higher language proficiency score requirements than those listed on our website. Okay, now here comes the meat of it. Preparing your application. One of the first things you need to consider is the deadlines. When do you have to have everything in? It's important to start early. Applications generally at UBC Okanagan for graduate programs will open 1 calendar year before their start date. It's important to apply on time. Most deadlines for September programs fall between December 1st and January 31st, so plan accordingly. All deadlines can be found on our website within the deadlines database. Complete applications received by the application deadline will receive priority consideration by the program. It's important to check your respective program's website before submitting an application after the published deadline date, as some may not accept after that date. Moving on to the actual application itself and fee. All applicants are advised to use the online application system. This can be accessed through our website. One thing to keep in mind is that a campus-wide login is required. So if you're a current or past UBC student or staff member and have an existing campus-wide login, it's advised that you not create a new account, as this can delay the processing of your application. If you're applying as a domestic applicant, it's also important to remember that you will be required to provide proof of Canadian citizenship or permanent residency. The application fee itself is non-refundable. The domestic applicants, the current rate for admission is $112, and for international applicants, the cost of the application fee is $168.25. Application fee waivers are only granted as listed on our website. So if you are eligible for a waiver, it will be automatically applied when you submit your application, and you will not need to apply for it. One thing to keep in mind for the payment of the application fee is that it must be made by Visa or MasterCard or via an Interact debit payment from TD Canada Trust or Royal Bank of Canada. And of course, most importantly, when you're accessing the application system, make sure you choose the right campus. So when I say the Okanagan programs are listed on the right, here is a pop-up that is shown in the application itself. We have a map here that shows the 2 distinct campuses for UBC. We are 400 kilometers away from Vancouver, so that's important to keep in mind. If you are applying to both, we are not close by to each other. And just as a reminder, Vancouver graduate programs appear on the left side, and the Okanagan campus programs will appear on the right. Something to keep in mind is that if you apply to the wrong campus, unfortunately, we cannot transfer your application. So please make sure you're submitting carefully. Another component of the application itself is transcripts. A complete academic history is required for all post-secondary institutions that you've attended. So this would include anything you've taken for transfer credit, any programs that you have left incomplete, anything that you have completed, certificates, diplomas, all of that is required at the time of application. The only thing that is not required is UBC transcripts, as if you're using an existing campus-wide login, this will pull your records into the application itself. Unofficial scanned copies of all post-secondary transcripts are required at the time of application. So we would expect you to upload these when you're filling out your application. Scans should be back and front and include a grading scale. If there's no graduation information on the transcript, it is advised that you include a degree certificate if your degree has been conferred. Web printouts are acceptable, but they must include your name, institution, program, and all coursework. If you're unable to upload copies of your transcripts during the application process, we do advise that you arrange for official transcripts to be submitted to the College of Graduate Studies immediately, as applications will not be reviewed until all required transcripts are included in the application package. If your institution does not issue transcripts in English, you must submit a copy of your transcripts in their original language as well as an English translation. And the rules around what is acceptable as an officially translated document can be found on our website. Conditional admission offers can be made based on unofficial transcripts uploaded to the application system, but we cannot finalize offers until one set of all required official academic records is received by the College of Graduate Studies. It's very important that you read instructions carefully when submitting official copies of transcripts to the College of Graduate Studies. Do not send academic records that are not sealed and in endorsed envelopes, as this can delay the processing of your application. It's also important to remember that documents submitted during the admissions process become the property of the university and may not be returned to the applicant or student. Another key component of your application is, of course, references. In change to last year's session, some of you, if you're attending a second time, you'll see that the minimum number of references is now 2 academic or professional references. However, it's important to note that some programs will require additional references, so it's best to check the program website before applying. Choose your references carefully and reach out early. Choose someone who knows your skills and experience best and can communicate your abilities to succeed as a graduate student. It's often that people will downplay the importance of referees, but selecting the right referees for your application will be essential in you becoming successful. Applicants are responsible for selecting appropriate referees and ensuring that their referees complete and submit the references prior to the application deadline. Referees are also sent a request when you submit the application. So once you click submit and pay the application fee, an email will be sent to your referee. It's important that you choose referees with institutional email addresses, as they are the ones who will be able to respond to the notification and complete the request online. Please note that all referees are verified for their authenticity. So if you choose a referee who doesn't have an institutional email address, they will not be able to submit their reference via the application system. And this could potentially delay the processing of your application, as they would need to send their references via mail. Additionally, if something happens after you submit your application and you need to make an update to your referees, please note that you are able to send reminders to your referees, update their email address, and replace them after submitting your application if needed, as long as the deadline has not passed. One of the most important components, of course, for your application is the statement of purpose. Check if your program has specific requirements for the statement of purpose before completing this document. Some of the tips that we have for you is to explain your motivation for choosing your program and/or supervisor. Most programs will require a brief statement regarding your academic or professional goals and how they align with the program. Some programs have very specific requirements, for example, social work, nursing, the IGS, and English, as well as some others. So please check their website for the full list. What's most important is for you to highlight your suitability for the program. Include details of your interests, achievements, academic and professional goals. Ask yourself, again, why do I want to pursue the degree? Although your answers may change throughout the course of your degree, and that's okay, it's important to have some direction about what you'd like to achieve with your degree prior to the start. Ask yourself, where are you in your academic career? How have your previous studies and experiences prepared you to undertake the proposed research? Describe how this graduate program will benefit you and what you see as your contribution to the program. And above all else, prove your academic readiness. The statement of purpose should be well written, concise, and in English. Describe the purpose of your research. Express your scholarly and/or creative interests in terms of a specific project that may or may not be related to your supervisor's current projects. Include your method and intellectual framework. How will you conduct your research or creative work? What intellectual or analytical work will you undertake? Situate your research within current scholarship. How does your approach relate to the current research on the topic? And of course, address the significance of your research. How will you advance knowledge in your chosen field? And why does your research matter? When preparing your application, it's also important to consider the timing of your English language proficiency test scores. This checklist item is added to all applications, and it's only removed for those to whom it does not apply. And so this will be removed once your application is processed by our admissions and records officers. As stated earlier, test scores must be taken within the last 24 months and valid when the application is submitted. A copy of your test scores must be uploaded to the application at the time of application submission. So if you do not have your test scores in hand yet, it's advised that you wait to submit your application until you have them. Official scores must be received before an admission offer is sent. They can be sent by mail or electronically from a testing agency, depending on the test that you've taken. Another important component of your application is the CV or resume. Arrange your resume to highlight your strengths as they relate to your chosen field. Most programs will require this, so it's important that you present the information in an easily accessible and attractive style. Some of the suggested content would include your education and credentials, the employment history, your research experience, your internships and volunteer work, and any other additional academic achievements. Additional program-specific requirements that may come up in your application is the requirement of a criminal record check. This is required for students who are admitted to social work and clinical psychology programs. For students in our Masters of Fine Arts program, there is also a requirement of a portfolio. Some programs will also require a scholarly writing sample. It must be written in English and can include course papers, conference papers, and public publications. It's important to remember to reach out to each program for specific instructions on these requirements. But in general, choose something that demonstrates your ability to analyze a topic in the same or related field to which you're applying. Moving forward now, we're going to hand things over to Nathan Sletton to talk about the COGS Awards opportunities.
Thank you, Laura. I will give a brief presentation about funding your studies because it's quite a stressful time entering your graduate degree because some of you may not know how you are going to fund your studies or you may be coming to pursue your studies with a funding package already established by your home country or by your supervisor or by yourself. So hopefully after this presentation, you'll have lots of questions and maybe a clear line towards securing some funding to support your studies. The webpage linked at the top there is through our website, and it has a list of awards that our office manages, and also external awards that we may promote but not necessarily manage directly. So one thing that I would recommend for all current and incoming students to do is to use that link to start blueprinting any and all award opportunities that are available to you and that you may be eligible for. So you can filter through citizenship, degree level, your status, whether you're incoming, which I assume almost all of you are, or the award status, which will be open or closed. And this is just a small sample of awards that we do promote. Sorry, Laura, I lost the slide there. Sorry, Laura, I lost the slide.
Sorry, I'm not sure. Oh, the slide's gone?
Yeah.
Oh.
I see the map, the Vancouver Okanagan map.
Oh.
Which if you're driving today, it's more than 5 hours, I would assume.
Okay, hold on. I will stop the share and then come right back to it.
Okay.
Are we back?
We're back. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Sorry about that technical difficulty.
No, that's okay. So where was I? Yeah, develop a little blueprint about all the awards that you may be eligible for. We do have a small sample on there, but the one more readily available for all students is linked at the bottom there, the UBC Graduate, Okanagan Graduate Research Scholarship, or OGRS for short. And that one is one that we provide to all graduate programs, a budget, and then they can decide which of their students, incoming and continuing, they want to support with that scholarship. So that is one of the more common ones that you may see or may have questions about. And if you do have questions about that one, or any, you can email us, but specifically for the OGRS, you will want to contact your prospective supervisor and graduate program, because they're the ones to determine who receives that scholarship. You can go next slide, Laura. So funding your studies with external awards is probably one of the more lucrative methods that we always promote. Not only is it a bonus to have to be well funded for 1 or up to 4 years for doctoral students from these tri-agency scholarships, it's a good way to exercise your academic muscles. So just putting together the application, writing the application with support that we provide, with support that other departments on campus provide, and that your supervisor and department may provide, is great practice for being able to communicate your research, potential research, and why you are the best person to do it on our campus. These tri-agency scholarships are only open for Canadian or permanent residents of Canada. For doctoral students, there is an additional supplement that is from Vancouver, UBC, that is open for international students. So there's still an opportunity there if you are not a resident of Canada. But these are the big ones. And even if you're not here on campus, you are still eligible to apply. Say you're going to start in September 2023. You can still apply for these this year, and it gives you essentially an additional opportunity to write the application and more opportunity to be selected to receive one. So if you have questions about that, make sure to let us know. And the master's competition is closing December 1st, so there's still time. To find external award opportunities that may not be readily promoted anywhere on our website, we have three options there: the Scholarships Canada or Student Awards. There are also links for international scholars in Canada that we may be able to assist you with. And we also do send award opportunities throughout your time on our campus for awards that you may be eligible for. So when you do become a student at UBC Okanagan, we will be always sending emails your way when there are opportunities that arise. You can go next slide, Laura. For PhD students, there is an established minimum funding whereby you must receive from your work on campus $20,000 per year for up to 4 years. So this could be a combination of internal or external scholarships, teaching assistant positions, research assistantships, but in sum, they must equal 20,000 or more. Which is great, and most of our graduate students are around that range, and PhD students even more so. So there are many opportunities out there, and what I will say, because I did see some questions in the Q&A already, is that teaching assistantships and research assistantships are all via communication with your graduate program and your supervisor. So if you do have questions about teaching assistantships and how to apply for them and receive them, and what your research assistantship package might look like, please discuss with your prospective supervisor and graduate program. Unfortunately, right at this moment, there's no minimum funding policy for master's students, but it's something that we're looking into quite consistently, because that is something we do want to implement on our campus within the next few years. And total funding committed to a student may be decreased if a student receives external funding. We don't see this too often, but say you receive that $35,000 NSERC scholarship, depending on what your program and supervisor has committed to you, that may change, but we don't see that too often. Next slide, please. So that is it for me. I will pass it back to Laura, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding funding your studies.
Thank you, Nathan. Next up, we're going to speak with some of our campus partners. First up, we have Stephanie Riley from Indigenous Programs and Services. Take it away, Steph.
Yeah, hello, everyone. First of all, I'll just apologize. There might be some chatting in the background. I'm just in an open office space, but hopefully everyone can hear me okay. So my role as an Indigenous graduate student advisor is working primarily with First Nation, Métis, and Inuit students. So I work both within the College of Graduate Studies, but also with Indigenous programs and services. So if you are looking to submit an application to UBCO and you self-identify within your application as Indigenous or First Nation, Métis, or Inuit, definitely feel free to reach out to me if you would like any individualized support with that, or looking to get any referrals to other opportunities or services on campuses. We're happy to work with you. And also just know that if you do decide to come to UBCO, you get accepted into your program. There are lots of services and initiatives available to support you during your studies. One of those is the Indigenous Center, and that's a space on campus, which I've pictured behind me in my virtual background, where students can come and gather, and that's where all of our Indigenous programs and services staff work as well. So there's lots here for you. I hope you'll reach out to me. My email's listed there. You're welcome to reach out to me anytime. If you would just like to connect, I'd be happy to meet you. I'll leave it there, Laura. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Next up, we have Nora Lambrecht from the Global Engagement Office.
Thank you, Laura. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I know that you're all from all over the world. It's lovely that you can participate in this webinar to get all the information you need to make that, that journey, not only an academic journey, but the international journey, because I see many of you are coming from all over the world and thinking of applying to come to our beautiful campus here at UBCO. My name is Nora Lambrecht. I am the International Student Advisor and Immigration Consultant here at the Global Engagement Office. The Global Engagement Office is here to support our international students from pre-arrival to arrival to settlement, and all the challenges that you may face as newcomers to this new academic environment, this new social environment. And so there are many advisors who can help you with all of that. As you can see, our email is listed there. We have our website. Our International Student Guide can support you in this transition that you will make as you prepare to come over to Canada. What we do is international student advising, support. We also have a lot of mobility and global education. Many international students do participate in going abroad, even more than what you've already done coming here. So we have, if you're interested in that, lots of intercultural programming, and generally here to support our international students through their transition. And I believe, yes. And so again, what can advisors help with? So I'm a regulated Canadian immigration advisor. We have lots of information on our website regarding your study permit applications. If you're an international student, that is what you need to be able to study legally in Canada. So once you have, we can go, thank you. So once you've been admitted into your program and gone through the process that was just explained to you to be admitted into university here, you will then have to now the extra step that international students need to take is now to apply for your study permit. And we have all that information on our international student guide, which I'll put in the chat in a minute, to help you navigate what does it mean to apply for a study permit, how to apply for a study permit. And you can email us if you have any challenges with that. We also support you with postgraduate work permits. So international students, one of the things that Immigration in Canada offers our international students here in Canada is once you've finished your program, you are eligible to apply for what's called a PGWP, which is a postgraduate work permit. It's an open work permit for international students to be able to gain Canadian work experience if you have the intention to settle in Canada as a permanent resident. So those are all the pieces of information that is available that we provide workshops for. We also have it on our website. We also know that settling in Canada, there's, again, for international students, there's many extra steps other than being admitted and coming. You are going to have to deal with medical services plan applications, social insurance numbers, because you'll need these to be able to work in Canada. Settlement questions if you're coming with a family, and just generally cultural adjustment, communication styles, what are the expectations, the challenges of the differences between your home country academically and here. So that's what we're here to do. We are here to support our international students in a holistic manner with the intercultural lens. I am an Iranian by birth, but have lived in China for many, many years. I speak Farsi and Mandarin Chinese. We also have other advisors who speak other languages. So we do have that experience ourselves. So we really look forward to inviting our international students, because you really do add a wonderful dimension to our campus and to the graduate program, because you come with your experiences, and we are proud of our international students. So that's it for me. There's a lot of information that, again, I will share that link with you on our chat, and I look forward to seeing you on campus. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Nora. So now we are going to move to, oh, sorry, I spoke too soon. Laura is going to speak a bit about the Disability Resource Center before we move into our Q&A.
Hi, Haley. Thank you. Sorry, we had one campus partner who was unfortunately unable to join us today for our discussion, but we wanted to make you aware of their services in their absence. And this is the Disability Resource Center. So the DRC supports all students who experience a range of disabilities and/or chronic or lifelong medical conditions, not all of which are visible disabilities, with academic and non-academic accommodations. So they do advise that you reach out to them as soon as you can to discuss any barriers that you may have, or any registration requirements with their office. The DRC has drop-ins 4 days a week, virtually and in person, and they would be happy to speak with you. Their contact information is listed there with their email and their website. It's important to reach out to them early on as grad students, because as they've seen in the past, often graduate students do reach out late and when they're in a point of crisis. So it's better to reach out early and to register with them if you need to. Some of the examples of accommodations for grad students that the DRC can accommodate include alternate formats for books. So a publisher provides a readable PDF, a modified practicum or residency schedule, modified equipment in labs or practicums, individualized writing support for theses, accommodations for oral defenses, extended program deadlines, and assistive technology for reading, writing, and lab work. So now we've come to the point in our discussion where we talk about what happens after you submit your application. Something to keep in mind is that you can only upload documents and edit references after submitting your application. No changes to the content of your application sections are possible after you've submitted and paid the application fee. You can check your application status regularly. One of the most common questions we get is, what is the status of my application? When you log into the application system, you can navigate over to a section called Submitted Applications, and you can manage your checklist of items that are still outstanding and take a look at the status of your references as well. You will be sent emails via the application system periodically, or our office will reach out to you directly with requests for information. And so that can keep you up to date on your application status and required documents. It's important to check your emails regularly, including your junk mail, because sometimes programs or our office requires additional information, and it's best to keep an eye out. Another thing to keep in mind is that we receive a large volume of mail during admissions season, usually from December through to the end of March. So processing time for mail delivered is normally 10 business days. Mail is processed through a central receiving office, so sometimes something can be delivered to campus but take an additional 2 to 3 days for it to arrive in our office and then be processed. You will be notified whenever your application is sent for program review. So this will be your indication that we've received all the information we need and the program is ready to evaluate your application. Remember to be patient. Allow 8 to 12 weeks after the application deadline for the program to review your application. If it's been longer than 12 weeks and you still haven't heard anything, you may contact the program you've applied to for more of an update. Once an admission decision is received and processed by our office, you'll be notified of the outcome by the application system itself. And successful applicants must accept admission offers by the deadline noted in the application. Okay, so now here we are at the question and answer portion of our session. Our admissions and records team is here to answer questions about the application process and the application itself, as well as our campus partners are sticking around to answer any questions you may have for them as well. If there's any questions still pending that we haven't been able to get to, you can reach out to us at gradask.ok@ubc.ca, and our email and website are posted there. So I will open up the Q&A and see where we're at.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Laura.
Yeah.
Just a reminder to everyone who's joined us in the webinar, please post your questions in the Q&A. I know there's a few in the chat. If you've posted something in the chat, can you please move it over to the Q&A? It just makes it easier for the team to see all of the questions in one place. And we've got quite a few people here to answer your questions. So it just makes it a little bit easier to make sure that we get to your questions. We can also export that Q&A and ensure that we've answered everything and circulate responses that we haven't gotten to. So I will pass it over to Laura to start delegating out some questions.
Perfect. Okay, so there are some repeats in terms of content of questions. So we may not answer each one individually, but just as a reminder, anything that we don't address right away, of course, we will respond back to at a later time. So one of the top questions here I see is, what is the timeline for hearing back? And do all programs wait until the deadline, or is there early acceptance? How about Michelle? Would you like to answer that question?
Sorry, Laura, I was typing in the box. I just heard you call my name, but I didn't hear the question. If you can repeat the question, I can answer it, no problem.
Yeah, of course, Michelle. So there's a few similar questions. So I'm just going to sort of consolidate them into one. As what is the timeline for hearing back? And do all programs wait until the deadline, or is there early acceptance?
Okay, great. That's a good question. It's actually a common one that we get a lot, especially around the deadline timeframe. Please know that if you wait till the very end deadline, you may find it takes a little bit longer to receive a response back, and it really will vary depending on the program. So high volume programs, you will obviously have a little bit longer time frame. We generally tell applicants that it can take anywhere between 8 to 12 weeks to receive a response back after the final published deadline timeframe. And this can vary. And the best thing to do if you're still concerned about how long it's been taking, you've given some patience and we've kind of passed that 8 to 12-ish weeks. You can also follow up directly with your program and or prospective supervisor. They may be able to give you a little bit better information about your application and the status of your offer. The other thing to do is that you can log into your application at any point in time to ensure that you have a complete application, that it has been sent to the program for review. And kind of at that point, your 8 to 12 weeks will start. So you will get a system generated email that will come to you once your application has been deemed complete by the COGS office and sent to the program for evaluation. And so that can kind of help give you a time frame for when you could expect to receive a response.
Great, thanks, Michelle. Next question we have is related to TAs. I'm interested in applying for a TA position. How and when would I apply for this? Nathan, would you like to answer that question?
Yeah, sure thing. Regarding teaching assistantships, those are all managed outside of the College of Graduate Studies. So you will have to get in touch with your prospective supervisor or your current supervisor if you've been accepted, and your graduate program, and they can all coordinate together to figure out what the timeline is for applying for a teaching assistantship and what the likelihood of being able to hold one will be in that program, because it's quite variable department to department, and we don't have that information in our office.
Great, thank you, Nathan. I'm going to combine two questions into one because they are thematically linked. Is it necessary for all disciplines to contact supervisors? And how will we know if supervisors are taking students? Natalie, would you like to take this one?
Laura, Natalie had to step out, so maybe pass to someone else.
How, Aparna, would you be able to answer that question on her behalf?
Sure, I can take that one. Not all programs require you to contact a supervisor ahead of the application process. Some programs do specify that you need to, and therefore when they're evaluating your application and they see perhaps that you had not contacted a supervisor, that may hold some weight in their adjudication process. A good tip to find out if supervisors are taking on graduate students is to check the program's website. So if you take a look at our College of Graduate Studies website and look for the programs section for the graduate programs that we offer, often on each program's website and their list of faculty, they'll have a little label or some wording that'll say, you know, so and so is currently taking it. In terms of if you would like to confirm if a program specifically requires, you know, having some kind of arrangement with a potential supervisor before submitting an application and you can't find that information on their departmental website, I'd encourage you to reach out to the program directly. There are email addresses and contact information on each program or department's website as well.
Great, thank you, Aparna. Next question. After having submitted the application, do we receive an acknowledgement mail or some sort of intimation that the application is successfully submitted? The status of my application still shows in progress in the portal, and I'm confused whether I've been able to completely fulfill everything or not. I can answer that question for you. Once you submit your application and it's been received by our office, you will receive a email notification confirming the receipt of this. This can sometimes be delayed due to technical issues, whereby if the system potentially sees a duplicate match with you, if you've applied previously and you've created a new campus-wide login. So that can delay things, but once that is resolved, you will receive that notification. The status of your application showing in progress is normal. What you can do to check the status is, as we said earlier, sign into the application system and click on submitted applications, and then you can click on the application and start the program and start date that you've applied to, and you'll be able to see the checklist of items that you have required for your completion. And within each item, you will see a status whereby it will say received, acceptable, not acceptable, and any notes from our office will be included in there as well. Okay. Next question, should we share our CV or artist statement with the professors for visual arts programs? Aparna, as this falls under your portfolio, I think I'll ask you to answer that one.
Sure. Generally, our visual arts programs ask for either a portfolio or your portfolio plus the CV in the application itself. That being said, if you are reaching out to a potential supervisor, it is probably a good idea to include your CV or maybe some parts of your portfolio so that the supervisor can better evaluate and get to know what your work is like and what your experience is like. So it does kind of vary between the departments within our fine arts program. So some programs like visual arts will simply ask for a portfolio, but not necessarily always require a CV. I think though, I think all of our programs are now in fine arts leaning towards adding a CV. I think there was one program, unfortunately, I apologize, I can't remember which one, but there was one department that didn't always ask for a CV. But in general, it's good to include it. Even if there's not a checklist on the application, you're more than welcome to include extra documents. There is a document section in the application that you can upload things to. But yeah, generally just to give the best idea of what your work is like and you know, give a good impression when you're trying to reach out to a supervisor, it would be a good idea to include a CV or your portfolio.
Great, thank you, Aparna. We have the next two questions are for Nathan. So I'll ask the first one and then the second. Is it not possible to self-fund your tuition fees?
It is possible to self-fund your tuition fees. It's not unheard of. Some students may have a full-time job, a high-paying job, and they come back to do their studies, and they can just pay it all themselves and support their studies throughout their entire tenure of their academic career. It's not super common, but it depends on the conversation you have with your prospective supervisor, because the conversation about funding will come up, and don't be afraid to just hop in. And it's not, it may be an awkward conversation to have, but it's a necessary one. So make sure to just you know, bite the bullet and go into a meeting with your prospective supervisor and have that discussion about how you are going to be supported during your degree. Because if you don't have those conversations, you might be left in a position that is not ideal, where you didn't have, you know, from the get-go, you didn't know what kind of funding was available, and your expectations and your supervisor's expectations don't align. So having those conversations early, and yes, if you are funding your own studies, you can tell your supervisor that, but don't think that if you fund your own studies, it's going to give you an upper hand in being admitted if you can't actually fund your own studies. So don't sell yourself short if you think that that's an opportunity to get that upper hand to be admitted into the program, because that's just might cause more problems once you start your degree and you actually need funding and support from your supervisor and department.
Great, thanks, Nathan. And there is a follow-up question. Is there a graduate entrance scholarship given by UBC for newcomers? I'm specifically asking for the IGS PhD.
Yeah, that would be the OGRES. So the UBC Okanagan Graduate Research Scholarship, that is essentially a bucket of money each program gets, and they can decide who they hand out awards to within their program. So that is for students already in the program or students who are being admitted. So they use that money and other sources of funding to determine how many students they can actually support in admitting into their program. So that is the main entrance scholarship that the departments and your supervisor can hand out. And for IGS PhD, there are none specifically, but there are other opportunities that you would have to apply for, and you can find those on our website that may constitute an entrance scholarship.
Great, thank you, Nathan. For someone with no research experience, would professors be open to taking in students like that? Michelle, would you like to answer that question?
Hi, good morning. Yeah, it's not impossible. It will really depend on the supervisor and the program that you're thinking about going into. Some programs may find that is going to impact your ability to succeed at the graduate level. And so they would give you some advice at that point in your application process. If a supervisor is telling you that they feel that you should have XXX experience before considering you being able to be successful in the program as you move forward, then you can take those pieces of advice and figure out ways to build that leading up to a future application. But it really depends on the program and the supervisor. It's not necessarily going to prevent you from being admitted.
Great, thank you, Michelle. Next question is, how is the, I'm assuming, GPA average computed if I studied a 6-year pre-grad program? In general, we can't answer that right off the top. We would need a complete application to be able to review your specific program. In general, though, we do take the last 2 years of courses that are, either the last 2 years of full-time study or coursework at the 3rd year level and above, if you're applying to a master's program. So unfortunately, we can't answer that question without seeing the documents and a complete application. Okay. Next question. Hello, from the past few years, what were the grade averages applied with that were substituted with experience? Also, what kind of experience is most appealing for a Master of Arts in Social Work? Thank you. Those are really questions that you should be gearing towards the social work programs themselves. We don't release information regarding admissions and grade averages. However, if someone does not meet the minimum admission requirements at the time of application submission and the program wishes to admit them, they can submit, the program can submit a rationale for admission to the Dean of the College of Graduate Studies to review the application and determine if they approve that admission or not. In terms of experience most appealing for the social work program, I do recommend that you reach out to them directly for that kind of information. Another question, are there any presentations like this for each particular program? I don't find this helpful as the program I'm applying to has a very complicated application process with many requirements, and you're not touching on how to strengthen and prepare the application for my particular field. Yes, of course. Thank you for that comment. You're right. We are speaking generally in terms of the application itself. If you have specific questions about what to include for the program that you're interested in, we do recommend that you email them directly and find out if they have any upcoming sessions available for you. Similarly, for MSW application, how much weight is given to academic grades versus references and work experience, etc. That is a question that you should be directing to the program, as we are not involved in that part of the evaluation of applications. The next question, I'm interested in applying to the MA in Digital Arts and Humanities program. I've contacted a potential supervisor and sent my statement of intent as she has asked for it, but it's been almost 2 weeks and I haven't received any reply. What can I do now? Aparna, would you like to answer that question?
Sure. Generally, our supervisors' schedules vary and they're quite busy, as we had touched on earlier in the presentation. It's hard to say or give a rough timeline as to when to expect a response. And I can understand how it may feel a bit awkward if you felt like you needed to send a couple reminders. I would say maybe if you don't hear a response back in another week or so, just maybe like a polite reminder would be appropriate. Just because, like I said, they would have very busy schedules. We don't know how many students also or potential students would also be contacting them. That being said, just to have yourself covered, you may want to think of reaching out to other potential supervisors as well if you find that there are other supervisors that kind of align with the area of work that you're interested in applying for on our campus.
Great, thank you, Aparna. Over to Nathan. Is it possible to be a TA or an RA of a professor at the Vancouver campus if we're a student at the Okanagan campus?
Most likely, again, research assistantships and teaching assistantships are outside of our department. So I would say maybe, but talk to your program. Since most of the funding decisions and how your package is put together is determined by your supervisor in your department, that's a question you can ask them, because if that is an option, then they are the ones who set up the accounts and the paperwork to make sure that is available to you.
Great, thank you, Nathan. Michelle, I'm going to ask you this one. I have my 2 academic references confirmed. However, there is potential for a strike at my university in the coming weeks, in which case the professors would be unable to write reference letters. Is there flexibility for a time frame for my referees to submit their letters?
Right. Yeah, that's a good question. And it does come up in certain regions from time to time. I think especially given that you are aware that this might be coming, it would be especially advisable to get your application in as quickly as possible so that your referees have the opportunity to try to make that reference submission on your behalf. There is a paper submission possibility that could happen if your instructors are no longer able to access their institutional email addresses to complete it electronically. But this can have serious delays on your application because it will take longer for them to create a paper reference, follow the guidelines outlined, and then send it by mail to our office, be received and matched to your application. So I would strongly recommend, if this is a pending possibility, to either get ahead of that and try to submit your application or at references, have them submit your references right away. Or look for other alternative professional referees that may be able to also submit a reference on your behalf, regardless of the strike.
Great, thank you, Michelle. The next question, I'm unable to use an academic reference. It has been too long since my undergraduate. If my course requires 3 references, should I submit 3 professional? That's a really good question. That is something that you should check with the program, whether there is an expectation that you submit a minimum of academic or professional references. Our office did used to have rules around a minimum number of academic requirements, and of course, references, and academic references are often very highly valued. However, if you do not have the ability to submit the academic references, if you choose to submit 3 professional references, they should be able to speak to your readiness to pursue graduate studies. So selecting those carefully, and if you have specific questions, you can always reach out to the program and get an idea of what they will accept versus not in terms of a professional reference. If, as an Okanagan graduate student, we want to apply for graduate studies at the Vancouver campus, how do we go about finding a supervisor if our degree asks for one? Great question. You will need to reach out to their campus directly. We are completely separate in terms of our admissions for UBC, Vancouver, and Okanagan. While we use the same system, none of our processes match up. So if you are looking at applying to graduate studies on the Vancouver campus, please go to their website and review any advice that they have regarding finding a supervisor. I imagine it would be very similar advice to ours. Is there an application fee waiver? Michelle, would you like to answer that question?
If you take a look, actually, I'll enter in the chat a link to our website, because this is a question that does come up fairly often. There is a specifically outlined fee waiver system application process. For those who do qualify, it would be international students whose citizenship and correspondence address is located in one of the world's least developed countries as declared by the United Nations. They're the bottom 50 countries, and the list is available on our website. I will add the application fee waiver information. Unfortunately, outside of that, our officers are not able to make any exceptions. So if your country or you do not qualify for the fee waiver through the system, we will not be able to consider anything outside of that. I think that's all I can really add. The system will automatically remove the fees if you are eligible, and if it is showing that you have an amount outstanding, then it has deemed that you are not eligible. And the link for that is in the chat if anybody needs to see that.
Great, thank you, Michelle. Next question. I have a specific question about social work statement of purpose. Is there someone I can connect with about this? Yes, you can email the program directly. Their email address is ask.socialwork@ubc.ca. If someone could pop that in the chat, that would be really great. I know their website has specific details regarding the specific questions that they want answered for their statement of purpose. So if you have very specific questions about that, we do advise that you email them there. Next question, do all applicants need to take the English proficiency test or just international students? Aparna, please go ahead and answer that one.
So this English language proficiency test requirement applies to any and all students whose previous degrees or degrees in progress for the basis of admission. So anything, if you're applying for a master's program, let's say you did a bachelor's program or in a bachelor's program and the medium of instruction is not in English, then you will be required to submit an English proficiency test. So anybody whose medium of instruction was not English. For example, if you are an applicant that had a bachelor's degree, let's say in China, your medium of instruction was not English, and you're currently completing a graduate degree somewhere in North America where the medium of instruction is English, we may, and with caution, I'm going to say may, be able to waive the English proficiency test, but I would advise that you submit a complete application first, because we cannot completely pre-evaluate your credentials without seeing your application. We would need to evaluate the length of study, the institution, and your previous degree. So the general rule of thumb is if your previous degree was not conducted in English, then yes, you would need to submit English test scores. That being said, if your medium of instruction was English, it is a good idea to include sometimes it's a separate letter program completion, or sometimes it's on your unofficial degree certificate where the institution will say your medium of instruction was English if it's not already on your transcript. And if you do upload that to your application, we require approximately 10 business days to process applications, and one of our officers will eventually remove that English test requirement from your application if applicable. So once submitted and you know that you qualify for the waiver of the English language test, course, please be patient, and then we'll possibly be able to remove that once we get to your application.
Great, thank you, Aparna. Hello, I have a question about funding. Does research assistantships count for one of the reliable funding sources, or does it have to be scholarships? Thank you. Nathan, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, sure thing. I would say yes. It is quite reliable. The packages that your supervisor and your department put together for you would consist of none or all of them. Research assistantships, it depends on what kind of funding your supervisor does have available, and they would employ you to work on your thesis, but also participate in possibly other research endeavors that are happening in your lab. Teaching assistantships may be less reliable depending on your department, but again, some departments have a TA position for possibly all students within the cohort, and some not so much. And then awards, Again, it could be reliable depending on the funding situation of your department and your program and the competitiveness of your applications for the scholarships. So definitely explore all avenues.
Great, thank you, Nathan. So I'm just going to combine two questions here. They're thematically similar. So are there any academic awards or scholarships, for example, like the OGRES, that are automatically applied to the student based on grades alone, based on the acceptance into the program? Caitlin, would you like to answer that question?
Yes. So the Okanagan Graduate Research Scholarship, you are automatically considered for that award. There is no separate application. There are no documents that we will review for this award. So if you send us anything outside of the system, we won't look at it. So it is based exclusively on your application for admission. And there are other awards depending on which faculty or program you are in. Certain faculties and programs have their own entrance scholarships. You can look at those on the website. Nathan will have linked it on one of his slides, and it will show all of the entrance scholarships. They are not based exclusively on grades. I'm sure the programs factor grades in. However, they will be looking at your application holistically to determine your competitiveness for those awards.
Great, thank you, Caitlin. We just have about time for one more question. What I'm going to do is there's two questions about the personal statement of intent or statement of interest. Can this be included, uploaded after submission? Yes, it can. Documents can be uploaded after you submit. It's the questions that you fill out while completing the application itself that cannot be updated. So I'm sorry if that was a little bit confusing earlier. Okay, well, I want to thank all of you for attending our session today. We hope that you found it informative and helpful for you as you make your way through this process. We thank you for giving us your time, and we wish you all the best for your application and journey towards graduate studies. Thank you and have a wonderful day.